Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. Grist magazine says that climate refugees are going to be fleeing from places like Florida and Texas and moving to the upper Midwest around the Great Lakes. Long simmering speculations about where to hide from climate change picked up in February 2019 when the mayor of Buffalo, New York, declared the city on Lake Erie's eastern edge would one day become a climate refuge. 2 months later, a New York Times article made the case that Duluth, Minnesota, on the western corner of Lake Superior, could be an attractive new home for Texans and Floridians looking to escape blistering temperatures. In case you aren't familiar with Buffalo, New York, this is what the city looked like in January 1977. I was in college at Arizona State University at that time, enjoying the palm trees and the beautiful women who'd gone there to escape the miserable weather in the upper Midwest. Almost everyone in my fraternity was from one of the Great Lakes states. People don't like cold weather, and the Great Lakes states are the slowest growing in the country. The real refugee migration we're seeing in the United States is that people are moving from Democratic-run states to Republican states where they can actually live like human beings. Afternoon temperatures in the Great Lakes states have declined sharply over the last century. Hot afternoons there peaked during the 1930s and are down 70 to 80% now. And there's been no trend in the number of nights below 0 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 18 degrees Celsius. This article in Grist is the usual climate propaganda nonsense and is the exact opposite of reality. They say that the Great Lakes are turning into wine country because of climate change. But the Great Lakes have always been wine country. Wine is one of the dominant industries of upstate New York and parts of Ontario. This climate insanity would be funny, except that actual policy is being driven by it. New York City just bans natural gas in new buildings. People have long relied on natural gas for heat, cooking, and hot water. By banning natural gas, the city is going to greatly increase the need for electricity. And at the same time they're doing this, New York is shutting down their reliable supply of electricity. They're shutting down their coal-fired power plants and replacing them with inadequate and unreliable solar and wind. It's not difficult to predict what's going to happen to New York City as they increase the demand for electricity while decreasing the supply. Natural gas is nearly 100% efficient. It loses almost no energy being transported to a person's home. But electricity transmission is extremely inefficient. It runs through wires which lose a large percentage of their energy. New York is making everybody dependent on electricity, which is going to increase the demand and greatly increase the price.
Under my plan of a cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket. Even, regardless of what I say about whether coal is good or bad, because I'm capping greenhouse gases, coal-powered plants, natural gas, you name it, whatever the plants were, whatever the industry was, they would have to retrofit their operations. That will cost money. They will pass that money on to consumers.
In the past, if the electricity went out, people were still able to heat their homes using natural gas, but this will no longer be possible. Now let's travel in time back to the 1930s and the story of Jim Braddock, the boxer. 1934 was the hottest year on record in the United States, but February 1934 was the coldest February in the eastern half of the United States. The stock market crashed in October 1929, and there were a lot of very poor people in New York City. The Braddock family couldn't pay their electricity or heating bills, so Jim Braddock had to go out to a nearby fence and rip off wooden slats in order to burn them in their stove to keep the family from freezing. This is from the book. The winter of 1933-1934 was one of the coldest in recent memory. One morning, May and Rosie walked with the boys to school. They were walking back down the snowy street when May saw a shiny new car outside their building. "Mommy, who's the man at our house?" asked Rosie. May walked up to the man, whose uniform showed that he was the gas and electricity man. "Can I help you, sir?" "I'm sorry, ma'am. You haven't paid the bills, and I have to cut your electricity off." Jim was fortunate. He was able to keep his family from freezing by burning pieces of wood in the stove. But most people no longer have stoves which they could use to burn wood. Now their life and the life of their family depends on Democratic Party politicians.
Under my plan of a cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket.
Democrats keep telling New Yorkers what they plan to do, and for some reason New Yorkers keep voting for them. I just got this email saying that a lot of people in my region are suffering power outages due to high winds. It's very cold here, but fortunately we have other ways to keep warm besides electricity. People who vote for Democrats are not going to have that luxury. Toto has been pulling back the curtain on this Dr. Evil level madness for the past 14 years. You can visit him, Kyrie, and Caesar on the web at realclimatescience.com.